In this video, we'll be reviewing the ToTheMoon MT5 Expert Advisor by Mr. Daniel Moraz da Silva. Stick around to the end to see if this is a real EA worth your time, or just another MQL5 scam. This video is sponsored by Prosperity Algo and our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Do you want to make 100+% annual returns through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout? Then click the link in the description. So this bot really drew my attention as a few of our viewers had actually asked me to make a review of it. Moreover, I also know that this bot has been around for quite a few years, and it's actually pretty amazing that it has a 3-year live track record across multiple different signals. And a few different points that I wanted to go through is just what type of strategy it trades, as well as look at a few of the different signals to see if we can glean some insights here. And from my understanding so far is this is very much a classic grid Martingale style bot, but the developer does seem to have put quite a bit of thought into it, as well as it has actually survived quite a few years, at least with a few different signals. And that's a pretty good sign that in terms of this style of bot, he probably does know what he's doing. And if you like this style of system, and some people do, then it could be worth looking at it for you perhaps. So it's worth us kind of doing a quick review on it. So here he's showing a few different pairs, which he does trade in terms of the current live signals. And based on the ones he's showing, it is clearly a grid Martingale style system because it's trading like the Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. I wouldn't be surprised if it's also trading the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar. It's not that the presence of Aussie CAD makes it obviously a grid Martingale, but typically if you're a good grid Martingale style EA developer, you will usually train it so that it will work well on more mean reverting style pairs. And Aussie CAD as two different commodity currencies, it tends to move reasonably sideways. Therefore, it is usually a pretty good candidate for this type of system. And here he does mention that the robot has many parameters, and that with each update he actually creates and adds more functions and more inputs. And going through the actual inputs tab in MT5, I was actually surprised by just how many different settings are possible, which honestly in my opinion, would not be a great thing, but at least it shows that he is trying to give people a lot of optionality. And in terms of the actual strategy, he does speak that it does use grid strategies. He also notes here that with certain more high volatility pairs like gold, indices, and Bitcoin, it is very risky to use grid style strategies, which is great that he's saying this because I totally agree that if you want to use grid Martingale style systems, like pairs like OddCat are really good because you need something that tends to work well in more of a mean reverting setting. So therefore, like OddCat as well as some USD pairs do work well for this type of setting. He's also saying that, hey, it does not work on FIFO type accounts and you need high leverage. So all characteristics of grid style systems, but he's being very open here, which is great because there's nothing inherently wrong with grid Martingale. It's just that it's not great when a developer shows you a perfect equity curve and says it's because of some sort of quantum computing, super whatever. And in reality, it's just a grid Martingale. Here, if he's being very honest, saying this is a grid Martingale, this is how it works, it has been stable for years, hopefully it's going to keep being stable going forward, however there's never any guarantees, that's probably the best way to approach grid Martingale style trading. And here we can see from some of these clips that it does clearly use some sort of grid system where it opens additional positions as price goes against the initial order. And let's hop over to some of his signals now. We can see here just from the screenshot that he's been running many signals for many years, and you never know if he's deleting some or taking some down. However, the fact that at least some of them, at a bare minimum, have been around for quite a while does show that there is probably a little bit more substance behind this grid Martingale bot than some other ones. So here is his Easy Goal MT5, and this one trades the Euro USD and the Odd CAD. And yes, it does indeed trade a grid style approach. The lot scaling, I believe it depends on the pair. Like the Euro seems to be scaling a little bit less aggressively than the Aussie CAD, which could actually make sense because the Euro, like anything that's USD denominated, is more likely to trend and will have more volatility just because of the sheer magnitude of news events. Whereas if you compare that to the Odd CAD, which is like pretty slow because Australia and Canada just don't have nearly as much news, and there's less of a strong trend as you'd see with like a very bullish economy like the US in contrast to a more lower growth economy like most of Europe. So yes, this actually might make sense. And here we can go through a couple of his other signals. This one is the uphill ECN. And this one here is trading primarily odd CAD. So odd CAD seems to be his favorite pair, which makes sense for this type of system. It is a pretty good candidate. And here we can see the equity slash balance line. There's a clear detachment indicating that, yes, indeed, this is a grid martingale as stated. Okay, so more odd CAD. He's really quite fond of the Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. My one kind of qualm here would be that he has so many signals. Maybe some of them are like periodically blowing up and he's having to take them down. That is something to keep in mind, but the fact that he has so many different signals with different set files, it's not necessarily a great sign, but at least they do have many, many years of consistent data, several months which are profitable, the vast majority of months being profitable for this type of system. So it is quite impressive for this style of bot. And if you like this kind of bot, so far it's looking pretty solid in terms of track record. And keep in mind that all of these brokers are also real brokers. Like we're not seeing any well trade here. So like IC Trading, fantastic broker. I believe he also has Oanda here and XM Global. Oanda just acquired by FTMO as well. So perhaps he's planning to take advantage of perhaps some synergies between the two companies. But from what I can see here so far, I'm looking rather solid. And I took the liberty of running a quick back test here, downloading it on my MT5 terminal and running a back test. I chose the Euro USD just to see if maybe we can stress test it a bit. And this was using every tick based on real ticks on the 8-cap broker. And here you can see a classic grid martingale style equity curve. Here I would venture that swaps or commissions may have been what took this out because positions were open for a very, very long period of time. Nothing was closing, but the actual balance line went down. I venture that's probably swaps, and that's what's causing that. And you can see like this is very much grid martingale, and you did have a 25% equity drawdown. So one or two more trades here, you could very well have gotten close to blowing the account, or yeah, actually, honestly, like a few more in a run, you could have blown the account. And that's really the issue with this style of system. It can work beautifully for 5 years, but all you need is one long run, and your account can go boom, right? And we saw that with a few bots this year in that earlier there was that time where the Japanese carry trade started to unwind and people started just piling into the yen. And there was this incredibly massive trend in the yen for a few days. It was a freak Monday this past year. And during that time period, many of these style of bots blew because it is almost a black swan event that it's very rare that you'll see, I think it was an NFP number that came out, which was just like completely out of whack. And it caused this enormous trend in the yen as people started shifting capital towards safe haven assets. And that blew a ton of bots. And you only need that to happen once for this style of system to break. Therefore, I find that if you can find a prop firm that allows this type of system, that's probably the better environment for it, just because your risk is inherently capped. So if you blow a prop account, it's not really the end of the world. But if you blow a significant personal account, that can be pretty significant. Let me go back here to the graph where I ran the ToTheMoon EA. And we can see that it is indeed using a grid martingale style approach. Before running a visual backtest here, I'll just walk you guys quickly through the inputs tab. And this was probably the longest inputs tab I have ever seen. Like this is absolutely crazy. And to what the developer is saying, there's a bunch of, every time he makes an update, he adds something else to it. Just to quickly skim through this, because I think it would take significantly longer to actually go through it line by line. But he has a bunch of different filters here. So price caps, volume, ATR, ADX, Bollinger Bands, filter strategy, enable buy and sell. And then here he has like a few different ways of actually entering, like anywhere there from Ichimoku to force index to parabolic, stochastic, RSI, Keltner channels, Bollinger Bands. And then there's time of day filters, there's weekly filter, like day of week filters. There's specifics where you can say like, hey, only look at this account, look at other accounts. There's percentage changes. And yeah, in my opinion, there's just way too many parameters. Like if you actually toggle these consistently, your odds of accidentally overfitting are absolutely massive. However, because as long as the underlying strategy is profitable without all of these hundreds of parameters, it might still very well be a viable strategy, but the more filters and the more parameters you have, the more potential points of failure a bot can potentially have. So I like to think like if you can keep it simpler and with some maybe like additional options on top of it, but like the underlying strategy should be pretty simple, that's usually a good thing. So I'm almost a little bit turned off by just the sheer amount of parameters here, but at least it shows that he has put a ton of thought into this bot. He's really tried to make it exceptional. So it's more like my personal preferences here. So if you like having a ton of different options, it might very well be the bot for you. Let me run a quick visual backtest here just to see how it works. If my MT5 is not too laggy. Come on. Okay. Pardon me. There we go. And it looks like some sort of mean reversion system. Like there are two levels here. Perhaps it's looking for more of a Keltner channel or a break of prior highs or prior lows. Well, we're seeing some indicators here too that these look like Bollinger Bands to me. Actually, maybe it's more of a channel. So yes, classic mean reversion, break of channel type system coupled with a grid. So this is a very straightforward strategy. But the main difference here is he has a ton of different parameters which one can use to actually toggle the bot. So that's quite unique and it shows that he's really put some thought and some care into this, which is quite cool. But ultimately, grid martingale system, super impressive live track record. Looks to be, if you like this style of system, probably a pretty good grid martingale style system. However, just be aware of the risk of trading any system like this. It can blow up in just one bad day. However, it doesn't look like a scam. Looks like the developers put some time and care in developing a good martingale bot. And if you're looking for something like this, this is probably a pretty good option. Guys, hope you liked the review. Take care. Have a great day.